Today we're talking about a slightly more tricky subject for the subject and the photographer, and sometimes also to talk about it. Let's just call it sexy photos. Hey everyone, Stephan here. I hope you're doing well. So let's talk about this tricky subject, sexy photos, or I guess what we're really talking about is showing a good amount of skin in photos. Now, there's a lot of different terms out there, from sheer to implied, of course, topless, nudes, and then there are naked photos. I actually believe that the majority of photos on the interwebs are naked photos and not nudes. For me, at least in my head, there's a big difference. A nude is created not to perv, but to create art. It's a celebration of the human body. It's well lit, it's well produced, it's an art form. While a naked photo, well, that's just a photo without clothes on. So yeah, not quite the same for me. And as a portrait photographer, I must admit the sexiest part of the human body, for me at least, are the eyes. If it doesn't work in the eyes, the rest just doesn't matter. But if it does, if there's some spark, if there's some meaning, some soul, some allure, whatever you want to call it, and there is skin, well, that's the added bonus. Now, if you came to this video expecting to see naked women, I have to disappoint you. Yes, you will see some skin, but not more than you would see on any beach or any, bikini shoot or whatever. Now, to be honest, I wasn't quite sure how much video I feel comfortable to show on this subject, but I set up my little camera rig anyway, and I thought, talking about sexy, you have to say my little Z6 looks pretty sexy, doesn't it? I know, I'm a nerd anyway. Especially when mounted like this, I think it's quite sexy on that motorized tripod. Doesn't it look smooth? Actually, it's not motorized at all. I'm just hiding underneath and I turn it by hand. But anyway. Now, before we jump in, let's clarify a few things. I totally respect that different religions or different upbringings or different regions in the world will see it very differently than I do. If that is you, then this video is probably not the right thing. Now, I brought up in the center of Europe. In Switzerland, we are very open-minded. And generally in Europe, it's the most normal thing to see naked people painted on the ceilings of churches. I mean, you see statues of naked people around fountains, around plazas, not just in the museums. And in Holland, as example, I find that super interesting, or funny, I guess. If you want to become a Dutch national, you have to watch a 2-hour movie that includes nudity, and they just want to see if you're ready to live a Dutch lifestyle. I think that's brilliant. So I approach this whole thing with my mindset, the way I was brought up. For me, nudity is no big deal. It may be for you, and I absolutely respect that. Nevertheless, I will do my thing, and I hope you're happy to do yours. In any case, I set up as many different lighting scenarios beforehand as I can, so I don't have to go and change anything during the shoot, giving the model some space. The first strobe is a 1200 watt second on a boom arm with a magnum reflector, which creates a very punchy light, and I place it nearly straight above the model. I think this should create a dramatic look. Second, I use my trusty beauty dish, as always with the grid. And as a third option, I set up a 1.2 meter octabank, also with the grid, that will create the softest light and the softest shadows. The idea is to shoot on black as well as on some colored backdrops. And to do so, I use a white seamless and then 2 full color LED banks, which I can then mix the colors however I want. Now, the trick here is, of course, to control my strobes so they don't wash out the backdrop. The strobes are much, much stronger than the LEDs, so I have to make sure that all works. And then before we shoot, let's talk about why we even discuss this. Here's an article on news.com.au from this week, making a huge fuss over a tiny little bit of underboob in a bikini shoot. Seriously, is that how Australia sees the world? That's just sad and tragic. Headlines create readers, it's clickbait, nothing more than that. But talking about creating those photos, I think there's really three categories of people or types that take photos that show skin. A, it's the ordinary us, when we just, snap away, be it in the park or on the beach or whatever. Is it ethical? I don't think so. If the people are not aware that they are taken photos of, I think they should not be in the photo. But maybe that's just me. Other people say, hey, it's a public space, I can do whatever I want. I personally don't think so, but that is my, personal principle that I don't photograph people unless they're aware of it. Then the second category, of course, is photographers. We create photos for the arts. We create photos for our clients. And if our clients want photos that look in a certain way, we're more than happy to create those. And we do so with style and with dignity and with respect. And then there's the third group, Group C, or maybe call it Group G. It's the guys with cameras. And these are the photos that float around the internet the most, which show a lot of skin, are very flat lit, terrible posing, and it's all about showing skin and not about creating art. It doesn't matter if you're a pro or not. It's all about how you behave. The rule is really simple. You have to be honest upfront what you want to shoot. Communicate long before the shoot and explain what you expect. There's no shame in wanting to create some gorgeous photos as long as both sides know exactly what to expect. Anyway, back to lighting. I mentioned that I set up several different scenes beforehand. It's not just about being ready and saving time during a shoot. It's about something much more important. It's giving the model or your subject as much space as possible during the shoot. Anyway, as you gathered from looking at Ella posing like a pro here, the concept for this shoot was to wear a mask and look like a goddess. And yes, sexy too, of course. I especially like the mask saying, if you can read this, you're too close. When I create such images, my secret goal is to create that underlying feeling of you can look, but you cannot touch. If I get that, I'm happy. Highlights next to shadows create shape and dimension and volume. So you want to light such a photo pretty much side on to avoid that flat and cheap looking picture. And then to mix it up, we switch to the white seamless, as I mentioned, and then hammer it with red light using those LED bars. They look great to the eye, but they're far less powerful than my strobes are, so which means I had to change my settings. I pushed up the ISO and then I lowered the power output of the strobes, and that way I could keep the aperture where I wanted it. These were shot at 6.3 and at f8. I think the dark red looks awesome with the red jacket and of course with that fierce look of Ella, creating that you can look but not touch feel. Then we tried out to shoot on blue. That's the beauty of working with color changing lights. So you don't have to run around and change color shades. You can just quickly change the entire feel by pushing a button. And then we ditched the jacket using a beauty dish with a grid on the right, letting the white backdrop fall nearly into black and making sure, of course, that we don't see any body parts that we don't want in the photo. Love the outcome. At the moment we know we got it. That's not the time when we wrap up though. It's now playtime. So just for the fun of it, we played around with creating some silhouettes. Very difficult to focus because my camera and my eye sees pretty much exactly what the video shows, so not much. But it's fun anyway. If you mess it up, who cares? Why not? Well, there you go. I hope that gave you a few ideas. Today was not about setting up the lights or lighting the scene or anything technical. It was about how you, I guess, approach a shoot like that. Now, of course, technically, you want to create highlights next to shadows. You want to have the lights more towards the side to create that three-dimensional volume. And yes, if you want to hide certain body parts, use the shadows, turn the model away from the light, and that way you can sculpt your picture a lot more. But my main point today is the behavior before and during the shoot. Before a shoot, doesn't matter if you're a pro or an amateur, it should be the same. You should communicate extremely well, and you have to explain exactly what you want to shoot. Don't change your mind during the shoot. If she does, fine. You as a photographer, explain it beforehand in details. And during the photo shoot, it's the same story about wording. If she talks about boobs, that doesn't mean that you should talk about boobs. You might then talk about shoulders. Push your shoulders back so the collarbones come out. Guess what that does? It also emphasizes the boobylicious area without saying it that way. So be smart, be respectful, communicate well, make sure everybody is on the same level, everybody understands what's to be expected, and then you can create some awesome pictures together. So that's it for this week. Be nice, do something cool, and I can see you again, or I will hopefully see you again next week when I'll take you on a little journey to Hong Kong. Until then, stay safe.